And I'm going to jail. My poor wife's here having a baby. So I had kids a little bit older in life. I'm not, I waited till I kind of had my stuff together, met the right woman. First child we had kind of late. It was a high risk pregnancy as it was. So it was kind of a scary thing. But we waited 9 years later and then had another kid. And my wife calls me one day and she's at the doctor's office and it's a couple miles from my house and says, well, the doctor says we need to go now to the hospital. I'm in a complete panic, totally freaking out. So naturally, I'm going to get in the fastest car I had at the time, which was a souped up, just an E60 M5. I had it souped up, and that car would go. It was the old V10. It was a blast. I've had all these exotics, but that's one of those cars that I remember. It was the prettiest E60 M5 I've ever seen. A lot of Warsteiner stuff on it. It was that carbon black metallic, kind of a special color, very metal flaked with a little bit of a purplish blue tint to it. Really super nice car. It was just super clean. In fact, when I bought the car, I was actually vacationing with my wife and her family up in New Jersey, and I was looking online at M5s for sale. And this one was so special. I called them, I gave them a deposit. I got up at 4 o'clock the next morning, hopped a plane from Jersey down to Brahman down in Palm Beach, picked up the car and drove it 8 hours back. It was a stunning car. That's one of those that I hated to get rid of. Well, I'm in the middle of my town here, East Cobb, where, there's police everywhere. It's family oriented and you don't fly through this town. Well, not me that day. As you can imagine, I'm in a complete panic. Her water has broken. We're massively high risk. She's in her 40s. We have to get to the hospital really quick. So I'm literally sliding into the doctor's office. Throw her in the car. She is freaking out in labor. And we take off down the road. And sure enough, police sitting there with radar. Now, I knew that I got hit, but I didn't care. I'm getting my wife to the hospital. I stumped on it. I didn't care. And I'm flying down Johnson Ferry Road, guys behind me. And I'm looking at her going, I just don't know if I can stop. I don't know. It's worth the ticket. It's worth whatever happens. We have to get to the hospital. And she's screaming at me, just stop, stop, stop. And so I stop. Well, by the time I stop, I have a great respect for police officers. And this guy ruined it that day temporarily. He's one of those, big guy, gets out of the car, comes storming up. I'm thinking I'm going to get yanked out of the car, thrown into the back, and I'm going to jail. My poor wife's here having a baby. We can't have a baby in an ambulance. It's high risk. We can't do it. So he comes up yelling at me. And the shaved head, the whole works. Exactly your worst nightmare as a car guy, right? He's not the one that wants to look at your car. He's the one that wants the reason to handcuff you. And I looked at him and I said, listen, I know I'm an idiot driving crazy. I've got a reason. Wife here, high risk, having a baby. Not going to have it in my car. It's not safe for her or the baby. And then he's just stoic and he says, ma'am, are you having a baby? And she's like, oh, yeah, yes, I'm having it. I go, listen, man, I don't want to ruin my car either. Let's go. And he looks at me and he says, I'll get an ambulance. I said, no, you don't understand. There can't be an ambulance here. We can't have it in an ambulance. And he says to me, well, if you don't want an ambulance, it's no emergency. And I said, the hospital is like 10 minutes away. I'm going. Son, you sit right here. Son, I'm older than him, right? I'll never forget him. I'm not going to say his name, but I'll never forget the guy's name. It was that moment. I can't believe that I didn't do it. I'm holding the steering wheel and I am just sweating. I'm pissed off. I'm freaking out. And I'm looking at my wife going, hold on, because we're going to go. And only because, she's screaming. I don't know if she's screaming because I'm freaking out. The baby's coming. It's legitimately coming. It ended up where he's lecturing me, telling me he's been in these situations before, this situation before. I said, you're like 20 years younger than me, unless you're dating a much older woman who's gone through it. I don't believe you. And I finally just said, you know what? Write me a ticket. And he went and he wrote me a ticket. I literally grabbed it out of his hand. Boom, gone. Same thing. I still floored it, took off out of it, and got to the hospital. I'm telling you, though, fortunately we did, because it would have been disastrous. She went into contractions in the hospital. The baby's heart would go down to like nothing. We'd have an emergency C-section like that. So I was happy with my decision to be flying and get the ticket. It was interesting at court because the DA was going to throw it out. And as I was leaving the courtroom, the judge made me stop. Come back here. Reading off the ticket on that road. I know that road. And I said, my wife was having a baby. And he goes, she in the car? And I said, yeah. He goes, go. And let me go. It wasn't like I was this maniac. I wasn't racing people. I wasn't doing 150 miles an hour. I was in the 70s in a 40 mile an hour zone. So I get it. I get that they have to pull me over. I would have pulled me over too. But when you get to the car and the woman's obviously, in labor, freaking out, you kind of think you should get a pass. Maybe even a little escort to the hospital. You want to get pulled over where you actually have that legitimate excuse, where you actually can say, officer, really, it's not that I was just playing. My wife, you can't possibly, you can't ignore this. And it turns out I've been in more situations where I have no excuse, and they say, have a nice day, great car. They want to look at the car. In this case, it was the worst possible thing.